talking about the 4 things you should be talking to your kids about money, and it's going to help them with mindset and everything else. So do me a favor, show some love, click that little like button down below and share this with a friend or two. Text them and let them know that Money Moves is getting ready to get started. And we're going to be talking about the 4 things you should teach your kids about money. So we're back live. Wendy, you got kids. I know you got money. What do you talk to your kids about? Or do you? I know a lot of people out there don't. It's one of those taboo items. We don't talk about money. I'm here to tell you, folks. Sorry to interrupt, Wendy. I'm here to tell you, I want you to ask yourselves, do you think you have a good relationship with money deep down? A lot of us carry baggage from what we, learn from our parents, and your kids are watching you and listening to you when you talk about your money. So do you think you have a good relationship, and do you want your kids to go through the same trials and tribulations that you did about money as they get older? And if the answer is no, you need to listen up, because these are some great points we're going to be talking about today. So Wendy, back to you on the question, what are you talking to your kids about money?
Yeah, my conversations have definitely evolved through the years. It's like now looking back, now that I have a healthier relationship with money, looking back, I'm like, I should have done things a little different. My first 2 kids, I just wanted to spoil the crap out of. And every time we went to Target, they got a toy. And then had more kids, and life changed a little bit, more bills. And all of a sudden, I couldn't do those same things. And, I have kids in all stages of life. So I've got the adults, the young adults, I've got the teenagers, and then I've got the little ones. So the conversation is different with each of them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we definitely talk about saving. We talk about how to make money. And, my biggest thing I want to push to my kids is that there's no limit on how much they can make. But it's not just about how much you make. It's about what you do with what you make, because that's
yeah. And I would agree with that. I think it goes a little further or even beyond that. You look at, kind of the first thing is teaching them the value of money. Because like you said, a lot of parents, especially newer parents, if they wait a little while, they're a little better off. They want to spoil their kids. Mm-hmm. And what happens when you do that is you take that lesson of money away from kids, right? Because they think money just grows on trees because mom and dad are just giving me what I want when I want it. I see it, when kids throw these huge tantrums in stores about wanting a toy, and mom and dad will just buy them the toy to shut them up, and that's the worst thing you can do, right? A lot of parents don't do allowances anymore. It's just, give the kids what I want. I saw a kid yesterday, I kid you not, he had to have been 16, 17 years old, driving through the neighborhood in his dad's Porsche convertible, top down, and you could tell he was trying to be cool and nervous. But I'm like, okay, that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, but if that's what you're teaching your kids about money, that it just happens and stuff like that, they're never going to learn on their own. And what's going to end up happening to you is they're never going to come off of your, I don't want to say, well, they'll continue to expect money from you. Let's just put it that way. Right. It's a cycle. And, again, that's why you see a lot of, Gen Z still living with mom and dad. They'll go to college and they'll move back in, and, they call them the boomerang kids or whatever, because they don't know, the lessons of money. And so they just, I always got it from mom and dad. Why would I want to go out and do that? I want to stay at home. So that value of money is critical at a very young age. And you can teach them, I wouldn't say 2 or 3, but as you get a little older, or they get a little older, start talking about allowances, right? I think everybody should pitch in around the house. I don't know how you did it, but everybody pitches in around the house when the kids were young, just as their part of doing their part for the family, right? But then they had bonus jobs that I would always post up on a board every week. Hey, here are some jobs you want to earn. This is what this would be. Just let me know, right? Mm-hmm. Sorry, gnat flying around, but I think that value of money, and that's kind of the cornerstone. If they don't understand the value of money, they're going to go and just expect it from you, or they're going to go into credit card debt because they want the item and just, and so they're going to buy it because they don't realize the penalty of it or things like that. So I don't know, what your thoughts are on that value of money, but me personally, I think that's the cornerstone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think definitely like helping them understand. I know, Sloan asked me, why do you work all the time? Why are you always on Zoom calls? And I was explaining to her, she's only 6, but explaining to her how when you have, when you pay for your place to live, when you pay for the water that you take a shower with or take a bath with, when you, turn on the lights, like all of those things cost money and you have to work to earn that money. Right. And then, you had mentioned something earlier that I think was really good too. Like if, say they earn a little bit of extra money on a side job, how much time did that take? And then how quickly can you spend that money? Right. And is it really worth it? Yeah. So, I say for adults, I teach adults this, in my coaching is like, if, what are you worth per hour in your job? And when you think about spending, right, is what you're spending worth your time that you've put in to earn that money? So
yeah, and that goes into the value of money. And it also teaches, that kind of goes into the next topic, which is more along the lines of, teaching kids how to budget. And I'm going to be honest with you, most adults don't budget, right? They'll keep track of what they spend, but that's not a budget. A budget is being intentional about your money and kind of deciding what areas you want to have. I want to go 10% towards my tithe or charity. I want to have 20% or 10% to 20% towards my future wealth, things like that. And then I'm budgeting to live on the rest. And teaching your kids that early, teaching them, about that saving, right? Mm-hmm. Paying yourself first, needs versus wants, kind of the things that you were talking about. I mean, especially with kids, that's kind of a hard lesson. Oh, I want it. Do you want it or do you need it? Well, if you don't need it, then do we really need it? And that's where you go into the conversation you just said. If you're working at $15 an hour, right, at some fast food joint or whatever the case may be, and you're making $15, you're going to net maybe 11, 12 of that. Do you want to spend an hour of your time on that whatever for $12?
One McDonald's meal.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, right? No doubt. That's crazy. But, going out to eat with their friends or stuff like that, is that worth an hour of your time? Because that's really what they're doing, right? And so as you start talking with kids about that, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, the epiphany. And we talk to our adult clients, right, in regards to is what you're buying bringing you closer to your financial goals or pulling you further away. And this is a lighter version of that, right? With kids, I mean, 5, 6-year-olds not gonna maybe get all that. So hey, Johnny, you just helped out in the yard and I gave you $10 for helping me rake the leaves. That took you an hour and a half, right? Because kids typically, when they get money, what do? They want to go and spend it.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't correct those habits as a parent, that is not going to change as they get older. So they're going to go out, make money, turn around and spend it on crap. And then how am I going to get to the next check? And it's this vicious cycle, right? So teach your kids about this stuff. So. All right. What else do we have?
I think, the understanding the power of delayed gratification. Yeah. Right. That's one thing I remember my very first boss in the corporate world talked about delayed gratification, like drilled that in my head about, doing the work now to live the life you want later. And we live in such an instant society, like,
instant gratification. Yeah.
Prime. It's like, boom, we can have what we want when we want it. And then with credit cards and all of that, right? That our culture is set up to be, for us to be consumers that buy what we want when we want it. And so it's a discipline to start to understand waiting and delaying and saving up for things. And then also just the mindset of, going back to that needs versus wants, right? Is it worth me saving up for this thing, or is there something better I could spend my money on? So I think that delayed gratification piece is important.
Well, and you end up, without delayed gratification, you go with the instant gratification, right? You end up paying more for the item. You think about that. So, I mean, and here's a simple example, right? You go out and buy a TV, right? I remember the very first TV I bought, I bought it with store credit. I was, right out of college, and moved into my own place, and da 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 da. And I went to Best Buy and bought a TV, and I paid, I think, $400 for it. But I didn't have $400 because I didn't know about money at the time. I was like, well, I'll just finance it because that's what you do, right? I can make the monthly payments. The monthly payment's only $25. Well, you think about that. I mean, it's not like I'm dividing the 400 by $25. The taxes all in. I think it was like, I don't know, 425 or whatever. But I have to pay interest. Mm-hmm. And so if I make those minimum payments, then guess what? I'm going to end up paying $600 for that $400 TV.
Right.
Okay. That's the same way with cars. That's the same way with houses and things like that. Now, I'm not saying you should pay cash for your house. That's not what I'm saying. But those smaller things, teaching your kids about saving up to at least put a down payment on future car, things like that. My strategy was always making the kids go in on something, right? Mm-hmm. Smaller things, I made them buy their own. They had to earn their own money on that, which we'll talk about that in a second. But just like, financing a car, things like that, a lot of parents will, make the kids contribute some of it, or they'll have to pay, okay, we're going to get a car, but you have to pay the insurance and the gas, or, I don't know if you've had that conversation with kids, but having them get their own money and buying into it, get some skin mm-hmm. in the game, so to speak, I think is phenomenal as far as a lesson.
Well, yeah. And I know for me, even just like college, and we had this situation when I was younger, when I remember people that their parents just fully paid for college, they cared way less about their grades.
Yeah.
Than the ones that were paying for it themselves. Right. You just take it more seriously when you, like you said, when you have some skin in the game. So, my kids have all, with their cars, they had to pay half. So however much you save up, I'll match that and we'll see what we can get. So phenomenal. The more you save up, the better.
And I know we've got parents, oh my gosh, why would you make your baby well, her kids are going to turn out better than yours. I'm just going to say it, right? And I did the same thing with college, and it goes further. And here's a very valid point. My daughter is taking summer school in college right now, and she had a course that she's struggling in. She knows the content, but the professor, and I've kind of peeked in, and he not the greatest job as far as relaying the information and versus what's on their test. And so she's like, I'm just going to drop the class and I'll do it later. I'm like, okay, well, what happens when you drop the class? She's like, well, I get a withdrawal. I'm like, do you get a refund? She's like, well, no, not now. I'm like, okay. So basically you're looking for me, and I pay half. I make them pay half through scholarships or whatever the case may be, but I pay through half. You're looking for me just to pay for the course again? Not going to happen. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. You shouldn't be happy with that either. So you're going to pay for a service that you didn't get, and you're okay going back to the same place and paying for it again. Mm-hmm. And you could see the light bulb going off in her head. Because I remember withdrawing from classes, and it was like, I get student loans, no big deal, because there's no paying in student loans. That's why student loan debt is so outrageous right now, is because kids just rack it up. Oh, no big deal. I don't have to pay it till later. Biden's going to forgive it. But it's one of those things that the lesson was learned. And she's like, no, I said, just fight through it and get through it. Right. And you'll be fine. And that's what she decided to do. But yeah, that delayed gratification can save so much money, and it helps calm down those instant purchases, right? Yeah. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Spur of the moment.
Spontaneous. Spur of the moment. Yeah.
Spur of the moment. Yeah. Spontaneous consumption.
Yes.
Because it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. If I know it's a big purchase, and that's one of the, I've thrown this trick out there before. Don't carry your credit cards in your wallet or purse. Keep them in your car, in your console. And then as you're in the store, if you see something you want to buy that's bigger, it's, crap, man, I got to go back out to the car. By the time you walk out to the car, you're out in the hot sun, digging through, find a credit. Screw it. I don't want it now. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's amazing what that can do for people. But, again, teaching your kids about delayed gratification. And lastly, we're kind of coming up on time. It's all about the income. You giving your kids all the money they need is not a good idea. And I'm speaking to our viewers right now. I don't know if you're live or watching this. That is not a good idea. And I see it time and time again with people, with adults that struggle with money. I'll ask them, what was the relationship your parents had with money, and did you guys talk about it? Whatever, did they have an allowance, or and you can always tell the people that are doing well or better. They were the poor kids. They were the kids that didn't have. They had to figure it out, right? Their parents made. My dad, for example, I didn't get an allowance growing up. He said, "There's a mower. We live in a neighborhood with a bunch of grass. Go at it." And so he bought my gas for the mower and let me borrow the mower, right? Because technically, I guess it was his. And I went out, and this was back in the day out in San Diego, little postage stamp yards, $10 a yard. I'd go out and mow 4 or 5 of them a weekend, $50 a week. I was, 12, 13 years old, and I thought I was making bank, yo. But, and it taught me the lesson. I cannot tell you the number of times because I hated it when he told me that. I'm like, man, because I was a shy kid, introvert. I'm like, well, I want stuff, and I'm going to go do some. Money's a motivator, yo. Y'all, I don't know why I said yo again, but money's a motivator. And so I got out there and did it. And once I started doing it, I realized how easy it was. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so shame on me for not doing 10 or not recruiting a couple of my friends and building a little business. But I didn't know about, entrepreneurship and stuff like that, which I think you should teach your kids too. That's the greatest gift you can give your children right there.
Absolutely.
It goes back to that biblical story about, don't give a man a fish, teach a man a fish, right? You give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. You teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. You give your kids money, you satisfy them for the day. You teach your kids how to earn money.
Yes.
You never have to worry about them again.
Never have.
Yeah. So I don't know if you got some stuff to add on that. I feel like I went on a little rant there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good. I'm all about entrepreneurship and teaching my kids that. And it's funny because I don't know if I told this story last week. I don't know. I've told this story a couple times recently. So I apologize to you guys watching if you've already heard this. But I was talking to my older kids in a group chat about an example of somebody that was basically flipping things on Marketplace to make more and more money and built a business out of it. And I was like, I challenge you guys, blah, 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 right? And I was talking really to my boys, but my daughter was in the group chat. And so my daughter says, Mom, what was that you were talking about with that guy? And I said, oh, it was more for the boys. I was just telling them how to generate some income by doing this and that, whatever. And she looked at me and she goes, I know how to make my own money. And I was like, oh, yeah. She goes, yeah, I did a little yard sale the other day and I've done lemonade stands. So I know how to make money. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Actually, she's better at making money as a 6-year-old than any of my kids were at that age.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I've got 3 kids and, they're all smart as a tack, right? My oldest is my old soul and, the brain. And then my daughter's super smart too, but she is an entrepreneur hustler through and through. I mean, she did the whole babysitting route, decided she didn't really like a lot of the kids because a lot of them are brats or spoiled, right? And so she's like, screw that. I'll watch the pets and do the plants. And so she's got a dog sitting business. And she's 20 years old in college. I bet she's making $1,000 to $1,500 a week. Just doing that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, you plant those seeds with your kids and you hope they take, right? And you look at that and it's like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And she's not, like, I wouldn't call her greedy or anything like that. I mean, she still does the bargain shopping and stuff like that, but she's stacking it back and trying to figure out, okay, how do I grow my money and stuff like that. So we're having some conversations. And my young one, he's still coming up. I mean, he did the same thing, mowing yards and stuff like that. And I said, hey, you wanted, Dad, I want to do this, that, I said, there's the mower. There's a neighborhood full of yards. Go have at it. And he started doing it. And, he's up at school right now in Kentucky. But, you give those kids those lessons about the value of money. So that way they're not just wanting to spend, because eventually either you're going to get tired of giving them money when they're adults or they're going to keep coming to you. And then that's going to impact your wealth strategy down the road. Because I see parents with adult children that still give their kids money and they need to be putting away for their wealth, right? And their retirement. Number 2 is teaching that needs versus wants and the budgeting piece, right? Not anything complicated, just what's your income, what's your savings, that needs to be first, and then what's your spending, what do you want to spend? And don't let them just go out and buy to buy, right? And that was one of the things I taught my kids. They would want to buy everything. And I told them, look, I'm going to buy you a set stuff. If you want, the extra, the iPod or the iPhone or the new PlayStation or the new video game, you got to spend your money on that. It was amazing. Number one, the purchases, the number of them went down. Number two, when they did buy something, they took way better care of it. Mm-hmm. And then they end up selling it down the road and making some of that money back. So they're learning that. And number three is that delayed gratification. You don't have to have it now. Let's save up and get that, or set money aside to do that. Go on vacations. Make sure your kids are saving their own souvenir money, right? Doesn't have to be huge, right? Save $20. You got to save $20 or whatever. Have an allowance system or some kind of way that they can earn money with you. And then lastly, teaching them about that income stream, about how can I make money beyond just helping around the house. And then, talking about entrepreneurship as they get a little older. That's more of I guess, your daughter's what, 5 or 6?
6, yeah.
Yeah, 6 out there making money. So if a 6-year-old can do it, your 10 or 12-year-old can do it too. Tell them to get off the couch, start making some money. So folks, we went a little over today, but I don't know. I see so many adults that are impacted because they didn't learn the lessons from your kids. And your kids are learning money lessons from you right now. Mm-hmm. They're watching you. They're watching you how you talk about it. They're watching you how you spend it. And they're watching you and listening to you when you complain about the bills and stuff like that. And they're learning, well, this is what mom and dad did, so this is what I'm going to do too. And if it's not the way you want them to come up, you need to fix it. You need to fix it and do them a favor. Like I said, give them money. They're satisfied for the day. Teach them how to make and spend money, and they're set for life. So that's all I got, folks. Wendy, it was great. Anything to add before we jump?
No, I think that's awesome.
Good deal. Good deal. We'll talk to your kids today. And I'd love to hear on the comments down below. If you talk to your kids, I'd love to hear about that. Just share the experiences, put that in the comments. And again, if you want to catch all of our past episodes, go to blackswanmoney.com. That'll take you to our YouTube channel. Help us out. Subscribe. Share it on your social media. Subscribe and post a comment there. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great week. We'll see you next